Tim Walz has been at the center of countless bizarre claims and political stunts that seem too strange to be real. Yet every time Joe Rogan digs into them, the absurdity only multiplies. Rogan, known for exposing hypocrisy and calling out nonsense with the precision of a comedian and the curiosity of a skeptic, stumbled upon Walz's behavior in a way that made UFO sightings look ordinary by comparison. What unfolded wasn't a portrait of a strong political leader, but rather a walking blooper reel masquerading as a governor. And Rogan didn't waste the chance to roast him harder than elk meat on a Texas grill. The first thing that stuck out was Walz's insistence on supporting controversial policies like gender surgeries for minors under 13, which immediately raised red flags for Rogan. For Rogan, it wasn't simply about politics. It was about how out of touch Walz seemed with reality. Instead of focusing on everyday issues that directly affect people's lives, Walz leaned into a kind of political theater, portraying himself as the champion of empathy and inclusivity, yet delivering it in a way that felt more like scripted marketing than authentic leadership. Then came the Minnesota state flag fiasco. Walz spearheaded a redesign that critics quickly noted resembled the Somali flag, sparking outrage across the state. To Walz, the change represented progress, a symbol of a more diverse Minnesota. To Rogan and many observers, however, it looked more like Walz was desperately trying to rebrand Minnesota as something it wasn't. It wasn't just a flag. It became a metaphor for Walz's entire approach, flashy gestures with little depth, designed to look bold, but leaving people more confused than inspired. But what really fueled Rogan's comedic breakdown was Walz's carefully curated military narrative. While Walz never outright claimed to have served in Afghanistan, he let others believe it and conveniently avoided correcting them. He retired just before his unit deployed, and his colleagues confirmed that he knew they were going. The ambiguity of his military service left Rogan shaking his head. In Rogan's eyes, this wasn't just exaggeration. It was classic political theater where appearances mattered more than truth. For someone trying to project strength and authenticity, Walz came across instead as slippery. The kind of guy who gives a TED talk on courage but ducks out of the fight before it starts. Rogan compared Walz's public to a sitcom character who stumbled into politics by accident. Instead of leading like a general, Walz behaved like a substitute teacher who lost control of the classroom 5 minutes into the lesson. Every attempt to project authority turned into awkward comedy. When Walz claimed he could kick the ass of Trump supporters and fix trucks better than them, Rogan saw right through it. Instead of intimidating anyone, Walz's comments sounded like the kind of insecure boasting you'd hear from a teenager trying to win an argument in a garage. The harder he tried to prove his masculinity, the more hollow it rang. Joe Rogan thrives on spotting phoniness, and Walz gave him endless material. The governor's speeches, full of recycled motivational lines, reminded Rogan of those outdated calendars you'd find in dentist offices. They sounded inspiring on the surface, but fell apart under scrutiny, like a cat poster telling you to hang in there. Walz's attempts at depth became comedy fodder, especially when paired with his habit of over-explaining things as if rambling long enough could trick people into thinking he was wise. To Rogan, Walz wasn't a statesman. He was a man with a flip phone giving a lecture on innovation. The problem wasn't just Walz's questionable record or his tendency to exaggerate. It was the consistency of his blunders. Every time Walz had the chance to look presidential, he turned it into a blooper reel. Instead of elevating Minnesota politics, he transformed it into a reality show that never should have made it past the pilot episode. Rogan highlighted how Walz strutted around with delusional confidence, as if Minnesota were the epicenter of global revolution, when in reality his leadership looked more like a lemonade stand held together with duct tape and misplaced optimism. Even in moments that should have been serious, Walz managed to turn them into comedy sketches. When confronted about his record or called out for his exaggerations, he reacted defensively, doubling down like someone insisting the car was heading in the right direction, despite holding the map upside down. Rogan joked that Walz was like a magician who knew only one trick, and even that trick didn't always work. Watching him govern was like watching someone walk into the same glass door twice, then insist it was part of the plan. Rogan's analysis also revealed how Walz had become almost cartoonish in his resilience. No matter how badly he slipped, he bounced back with uncanny enthusiasm, like a character in a slapstick comedy. Whether it was defending tampons in boys' bathrooms, rebranding the state flag, or fumbling through speeches about free speech, Walz kept moving forward, unshaken by ridicule. Rogan admitted it was almost impressive, not because of skill, but because of sheer obliviousness. Walz wasn't dodging accountability with intelligence. He was dodging it with the blind luck of a cartoon character slipping on ice, but never falling. Rogan and his guests couldn't help but laugh at how Walz treated criticism. Instead of absorbing lessons or addressing concerns, Walz treated every attack as proof he was doing something right. "I know I'm on the right track. If Fox News is howling at me," he'd say, mistaking mockery for validation. To Rogan, that was the clearest sign Walz lived in an alternate reality, one where every mistake was secretly a victory. It wasn't leadership. It was delusion marketed as confidence. Even when videos circulated online, whether real or generated, showing Walz in unflattering situations, people believed them because they fit his persona too well. That, Rogan pointed out, was the most telling sign. Walz's reputation was so awkward and absurd that even deepfake seemed plausible. His image had become inseparable from political comedy, a man whose every move looked like part of a blooper reel, whether real or fabricated. The irony of it all was that Walz believed he was succeeding. He strutted across stages as if delivering historic speeches, when in reality, audiences were witnessing political karaoke off-key, overconfident and unintentionally hilarious. Rogan exposed him not as a villain, not even as a schemer, but as a character study in political slapstick. Minnesota wanted a governor, but what it got was sitcom material disguised as leadership. By the end of Rogan's breakdown, the image of Walz was cemented. Not a mastermind, not a strongman, but an unintentional comedian who turned every chance at leadership into a punchline. Whether it was inflating his military record, rebranding state symbols, or overselling his relatability, Walz consistently delivered chaos wrapped in confidence. And that, Rogan pointed out, was why people couldn't stop watching. Walz wasn't running a state. He was starring in a political sitcom that no one asked for but everyone found impossible to ignore.